In this video, I'm going to go over my top 10 players still under the age of 30 that I think are on the Hall of Fame path. Stick with me and find out who's in my top 10 this year. Hey everybody, thanks again for joining me on my channel, Brutus on Baseball. This video is the last one in my series for 2023, updating my top 10 Hall of Famers from each of the different eras. We're going to be talking about the top 10 players under the age of 30 that I think are the most likely to be on a Hall of Fame path. These are the guys that are furthest away from making the Hall of Fame, so there's going to be a lot of projection here, and I can guarantee that several of these guys actually won't make the Hall of Fame in the long run. They may sustain injuries or longer periods of ineffectiveness, and you just never really know. The best place to start is to look at my top 10 from midway through 2022 when I last updated this list. The first thing that we'll notice is that there are a number of guys that are 29 years old on that list, which means that this year when I updated it, they're now 30 and no longer qualify for the under 30 top 10 list. That means all of these guys, Mookie Betts, Manny Machado, Bryce Harper, Jose Ramirez, Xander Bogaerts, are all gone now from the top 10. And so they're going to have to be replaced with somebody. And in addition to the guys that are remaining on this under 30 list, there are a number of them that had not so great years and some of them that had great years. So there's going to be a lot of movement in this video, and it's not going to look anything similar to the one that I created last year. So let's jump right in with the number one guy on my list for 2023, and that is 29-year-old Francisco Lindor. Lindor actually didn't have a great start to the year in 2023, but he ended up putting together a pretty good campaign, which saw him put up a 6 WAR and place 9th in the MVP award voting for the second straight year. If you had asked me at the beginning of the year, I probably would have guessed that he would be dropping on this list, but because of the year that he actually ended up putting together at only 29 years old, he moved up to the number one spot. His stats: 1,300 plus hits already, 215 home runs, and a 117 OPS plus. Pretty decent, especially when you consider he's a good shortstop as well. 25 WAA and 43 WAR are really great before your 30th birthday, and project him to get probably a 60 plus WAR for his career as long as he can keep it going. He's a 4-time All-Star. One time he was in the top 5 of the MVP award voting. Not nearly as many as you'd like to see, but still not too bad. 2 Gold Gloves, a Platinum Glove, and 3 Silver Slugger awards. He's not nearly as good as the number one guy on the list last year, Mookie Betts, and so it's a little bit by default that he gets it because there's no real standout absolute Hall of Famer here. But among the guys that are 29 and well on their way, he definitely ranks at the top for me. The number 2 guy on my list is somebody that didn't make the top 10 last year, because I specifically said I would like to see him produce another year just like he did in 2023, and that is Shohei Otani. Ohtani I probably would have put at number 1 if it hadn't been for a September arm injury that's going to keep him off the mound for all of 2024 and perhaps beyond. I wouldn't be surprised to see his role change a little bit from starting pitcher to a reliever, kind of like John Smoltz did halfway through his career. But in any case, given the years that he's put up already, showing that he can do it on both the pitching and hitting sides of the ball is pretty fantastic. And there's a lot of guys that I'm sure would vote for him in the Hall of Fame already, and all he needs to do is get the 10 years minimum service required. He was 28 years old this year, and most amazingly, he's got a 142 ERA plus and a 148 OPS plus, showing that he is 40% above average on both the pitching and hitting. Ohtani is doing something we've never seen done before. His WAA of 22 and his WAR of 34.5 is lower than Lindor's, and one of the reasons why I did put him number 2. But that's because he hasn't had as long of a career in the major leagues yet, and he's had to deal with some injuries too. Projections: it's impossible to project Ohtani because it depends on whether he's going to keep pitching or not, and how many more years could he put together where he's an all-star pitcher and hitter in the same season. It's really tough to project, and I wouldn't be surprised to see him get a 50 or 60 WAR career or like an 80 or 90 WAR career if he can keep both going. It's just too hard to predict. He is a 3-time All-Star, Rookie of the Year in 2018, 2 times now he's won the MVP award, and another top 5 MVP finish. He also has a top 5 Cy Young Award finish and 2 Silver Slugger awards. Just a phenomenal baseball player on all sides. The number 3 guy on my list is sure to create some diverse opinions, and that is Carlos Correa. Correa's only 28 years old, and he's got about 1,050 hits, 173 home runs, and a 124 OPS plus. He's got a WAA of 26 and WAR of 41, which is pretty close to Lindor at a year younger. But the projections is where it really gets difficult with Correa. Could he get a 60-plus WAR career? Well, given his trajectory, absolutely. But what about his decline? What about the concerns over the health of his ankle that both the San Francisco Giants and New York Mets saw enough to not give him the contract that they negotiated with him? It's a big question mark, and we'll have to see how it all plays out. At this point, though, he is a two-time All-Star, Rookie of the Year in 2015. One time he's been in the top 5 of the MVP award voting, a Gold Glove, a Platinum Glove, and a World Series championship. I put him at number 3 ahead of a lot of the other guys because of his track record, but I would not be surprised to see the next number of guys in this list pass by Correa if he either doesn't recover from his poor 2023 season or he just can't physically stay on the field long enough. And the number 4 guy is creeping so close to Correa that I almost put him in the number 3 position, and that is Corey Seager. Seager did move up 6 spots from number 10 last year to number 4 this year, but the reason I didn't put him ahead of Correa is that he's a year older at 29 years old. He's got just over 1,000 hits, 170 home runs, so pretty in line with Correa, and a 134 OPS plus. But his WAA is only 20 and his WAR is 32, so well behind Correa even though he is a year older. Those are the reasons why I put him behind Correa this year, but I won't be surprised at all if I end up putting Seager ahead of Correa next year. But I think he's got to put another year together in order to really bypass him. Because of his age and his difficulty being healthy and staying on the field, I put that a 50-plus WAR career is quite possible. Could he get to 60? Sure, but he's got to stay a lot more healthy than he has. He's a 4-time All-Star, Rookie of the Year in 2016. 2 times he's been in the top 5 for the MVP award at the end of the year. 3 Silver Sluggers, 2 World Series championships. And this is one area where Seager really starts to separate himself. He's not only got the 2 World Series championships, but he's got the 2 World Series MVP awards as well. So he might be one of those guys that when the postseason comes and the light really shines on him, he excels. And that reputation could help to put him over the top in any future Hall of Fame balloting, even if he doesn't quite have the numbers as some of the other guys. The number 5 guy on my list is another guy that had a down year last year, and that is Trea Turner. Now, I thought that Trea was going to put together a phenomenal year going to the Phillies in 2023, but he just struggled for the first 2/3 of the season before turning it on in August and September. He is 29 years old. He's got 1,200 hits, 150 home runs, 121 OPS plus, and 260 stolen bases, which is a special part of his game. You look at his numbers, and they're not too far off from a lot of the other guys, Seager, Correa, and Lindor. He's got a WAA of 19.5 and a WAR of 33, putting him neck and neck with Seager. And really the reason why I put Trea 1 spot lower than Seager is because of the year that he had compared to Seager's, and he just doesn't have those postseason accolades that Seager does. Similar to Seager though, he could have a 50-plus WAR, 60 if he really keeps going for a long period of time. He's a 2-time All-Star. 1 time he's been in the top 5 of the MVP voting, a Silver Slugger, and a World Series championship as well. The number 6 guy on my list is the last of the 29-year-olds that are really bunched up with Correa, Seager, Turner, and Alex Bregman. Alex Bregman is one of those chronically overlooked players in my opinion. He's 29 years old. He's just shy of 1,000 hits, 165 home runs, a 135 OPS plus. And he's got a WAA of 21.5 and a WAR of 35.5, which actually puts him ahead of both Seager and Trea Turner in terms of career value so far, even though his counting stats may be a little bit lower. And similar to them, he could have a 50-plus WAR career easily, and I think a 60-plus WAR career is not out of the question if he keeps on being productive. The reason why Bregman is so underrated in my mind is because he started off really strong in his career, and then in his prime, he hasn't been quite as good as he used to be. In addition to that, he's typically started off the last number of years really cold in April and May before turning it on and putting together a 4 or 5 WAR season each year. The combination of not being as good as when he was younger and being a slow starter makes it so people overlook him, as well as the fact that he plays on the Houston Astros, and a lot of fans hold that against him as well. He is a 2-time All-Star, 2 times that he's been in the top 5 of the MVP award voting, and he probably should have won in 2019. He's a Silver Slugger winner and a 2-time World Series champion as well. And for anybody who points to Bregman and the Astros cheating scandal, he was a rookie in 2017. And I would put the onus on leadership for that squad on guys that have been around a lot longer, and then a rookie like Alex Bregman. The rest of this list, you're going to see a bunch of new names. Guys that were too young in their careers for me to put them in the top 10 last year. But because of how many guys graduated to the 30-year-old platform, I've got to put some of these names in here. The easiest one to pick in number 7 is Ronald Acuna Jr. Acuna is only 25 years old. He's just shy of 800 hits, 161 home runs, a 141 OPS plus, and 180 stolen bases. Numbers that were pumped up in a big way in 2023 with the first 40 home run and 70 stolen base season in Major League history. His WAA is 17 and his WAR is 26, so definitely behind the other guys, but he's a full 3 or 4 years younger than those other guys as well. You can't expect a 2023-like season every year from Acuna, but give him a couple more years of similar type production, he'll definitely be passing a lot of the other names on this list. Projections, the sky's really the limit with this guy. He's a 4-time All-Star, Rookie of the Year. He was an MVP in 2023 and in the top 5 of the MVP award voting another time. And he's a 3-time Silver Slugger. And not far behind Acuna at number 8 on my list is Juan Soto. I really could have put these guys 7A and 7B, but I decided to put Acuna just a hair ahead of Soto because of the season he had in 2023. Juan Soto is a year younger at only 24 years old. He's pretty much got the same number of hits, the same number of home runs, and a 157 OPS plus, which is better than Acuna. But he doesn't have the running game or defensive game that Acuna does. His WAA is 18 and his WAR is 29, two numbers that are slightly ahead of Acuna. But that doesn't take into account that Acuna was on the shelf for pretty much a full season. Projections for Soto, again, the sky's the limit for him as well. We'll just have to see where his career goes. 3-time All-Star, 2 times that he's been in the top 5 of the MVP award, 4 Silver Sluggers, and a World Series championship. All of those accolades by the age of 24. Another phenomenal talent. And we're starting to get to the point in my list where I had a lot of young guys to choose from, and I really had trouble deciding who to put in the number 9 and 10 spots. Number 9 on my list, though, is 29-year-old Matt Olsen. I picked Olsen because he's a little bit older than the other guys, putting him a little bit closer to the Hall of Fame path and not having so much projection. But I could have picked a younger guy too because Olsen actually started pretty late in his career. At 29, he's only got 837 hits, 230 home runs, which is great, and a 137 OPS plus. His WAA of 16.5 and his WAR of 29 are in line with other guys that are several years younger than him. So he's going to have to be great well into his 30s to actually be able to get into a Hall of Fame. Projections, maybe 400 plus home runs, 50 WAR, those are possibilities, but it really depends on his health and longevity. He's a 2-time All-Star. 1 time he's been in the top 5 of the MVP award voting. 2 times that he's won the Gold Glove and a 1-time Silver Slugger award winner. The main reason I picked Olsen for the number 9 spot is his best year was 2023 in his age 29 season. And so if he can keep doing that, we could see him climb this list as well. And the last spot on my list, number 10, was the toughest decision for me. But I picked Fernando Tatis Jr. I could have picked a ton of guys, somewhere in the range of 25 to 27-year-olds that had similar career values so far to Tatis. But when I kept looking at them, nobody had the talent that Tatis really has shown in his career. He's only 24 years old, 451 hits, 106 home runs, which isn't much, but when you consider missing an entire season, those are pretty good numbers for a 24-year-old. And he's got a 143 OPS plus when he has been able to play. 13.5 WAA and 19 WAR are great numbers, again, for a 24-year-old. Projections, who knows? We're going to have to see what he can do in the future. He's a 1-time All-Star, 2 times that he's been in the top 5 of the MVP award voting, 2 Silver Sluggers, a Gold Glove, and a Platinum Glove, which happened this year in 2023, his first full season in right field. Obviously, what really hurts Tatis and his potential Hall of Fame career path is his attitude and his suspension for PEDs in 2022. In my opinion, when I compared his career to the other guys that I could have potentially picked here, I just couldn't pass up the fact that Tatis is on another level talent-wise. And when I sat down and thought about it, if he has a full Hall of Fame worthy career by the time he turns 40, and he was suspended at the age of 23, but never had any issues for the next 15 seasons or so, then I do not think the voters are going to hold that mistake against him nearly as much as they do for other players that were suspended for failed PED tests. Time will tell, of course, but that's my gut feeling. And anyway, it's the number 10 spot on my top 10 of players under 30, so I'm assuming a lot of room for error by this point anyway. I'm not going to lose much sleep if I get this one wrong. Now, I always talk about honorable mentions after my top 10 list, but there's just so many guys here all bunched up between 25, 26, 27 years old that I had a hard time picking, and I'm not going to go through all their career numbers here. But here's my list of guys that I could have picked in that number 10 slot. Yordan Alvarez, 26 years old, 165 OPS plus. Phenomenal hitter, and a lot of accolades too. I totally could have picked him, but he's 2 years older than Tatis. Bichette, 25 years old. We know what we're going to get with him. He's a very aggressive hitter with not much patience at the plate, and not a whole lot of accolades yet. But he's still young, so we'll see where his career goes. Kyle Tucker has been great, but he's got pretty low stats for a 26-year-old compared to some of the other guys. Austin Riley has been great. Cody Bellinger, I never expected him to be on this list, but at 28 years old, he's actually doesn't have too bad numbers, and he's got some great accolades. Signing with the Cubs could have been the career resurgence that he needed, and we'll have to see where it all plays out from here. Rafael Devers, I'm not a huge fan of Devers. He hits a lot of bombs, that's great, but overall his game is just not as good as others. And his WAA of 7 and his WAR of 19 show that, and I included him more here as a comparison to the other players, because I figured he might be somebody that fans would bring up quite often, should be on the top 10 list. Ozzie Albies doesn't quite have the game that a lot of these other guys have, but he started out so young that he actually has quite good counting stats and accumulating pretty good WAR by the age of 26. So you can't totally count him out if he can stay productive for a long period of time. And Sandy Alcantara is a guy that I would have loved to put into the top 10 list as the only other pitcher other than Ohtani. But I just couldn't do it because of his arm injury and missing all of the 2024 season coming up with Tommy John surgery. But at 27, he's got 41 wins, 789 Ks, a 128 ERA plus, some great WAA on WAR numbers, and a Cy Young Award. I couldn't find any other pitchers that were old enough and had been around for enough years to qualify for this top 10 list in my mind. But I would love to find one. It's just really hard to find pitchers that can sustain it for a long period of time. So there you go. That's my top 10 list of players under the age of 30, plus a whole swath of guys that could have been considered for the top 10 and are just on the outside looking in. We'll have several guys on this list graduating next year, like Francisco Lindor, Alex Bregman, Corey Seager, Trey Turner. They're all going to be over 30. And so we're going to have to consider a lot of these guys for the top 10 next year. Thanks again for joining me. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, share it with anybody who loves baseball in the Hall of Fame. Until next time, enjoy the off season, keep talking baseball, and we'll see you around.